did it despite the fact that much in that book truly angered him. It's a book called My Pakistan Papers, largely comprising a long dispatch that I wrote in my last days in Karachi, which I was surprisingly permitted to publish as representing my personal views and not those of the government. I had first suggested a process of uninterrupted and uninterruptible dialogue as the only way forward. My suggestion had no takers then. In Pakistan Foreign Minister Begum Hira Khan, I seem to have suddenly found a possible taker. Now, as she has publicly voiced the concept at her press conference during her visit to India last July, in the presence of the Indian Ministry of External Affairs, and repeated the same phrase at the UN General Assembly in September 2011. I see no alternative to structuring such a dialogue into an uninterrupted and uninterruptible mode if we really are to effect a systemic transformation of our relationship. I hope that what I have argued so far shows that such a systemic transformation is both desirable and feasible. I know that most in the establishment of both countries would seriously disagree. They would argue that differences are so fundamental and intentions so hostile that to be tricked into talking without knowing where such talk would lead is tantamount to compromising vital security concerns, jeopardizing national interests, and rendering diplomatic initiative hostage to a meandering dialogue from which there would be no escape. Better, they say, to keep the guard up, look reality squarely in the face, and leave romanticism to soft-hearted poets and out-of-world concerts generally. There is also, it was Mani Dikshit who put it beautifully on the occasion of the release of my book, Pakistan Papers, that he refused to have, he said, a Pollyanna view of Pakistan. And I am very proud that I do have a Pollyanna view of Pakistan. There is also the other argument, growing more strong in India by the day, and possibly here too among the younger generation in Pakistan, that we've lived in simmering hostility for the last 6 decades and can do so indefinitely. There are other things to do than engage in fruitless interchange. Best to let matters simmer while we get on with other things. I belong to the minority that thinks there are 3 compelling reasons why India should proactively engage with Pakistan. Why India should proactively engage with Pakistan. First, for the domestic reason that a tension-free relationship with Pakistan would help us consolidate our own nationhood, the bonding adhesive of which is secularism. Second, for the regional reason that regional terrorism can be effectively tackled only in cooperation with Pakistan and not in confrontation with it. And third, for the international reason that India will not be able to play its due role in international affairs so long as it is dragged down by its quarrels with Pakistan. And equally, I believe, it is in Pakistan's interest to seek accommodation with India for 3 counterpart reasons. First, the Indian bogey has harmed rather than helped consolidate the nationhood of Pakistan. This point requires a lecture on its own, so I'm not going to elaborate. But I do believe, and I think many Pakistanis would agree with me, that the Indian bogey has harmed rather than helped consolidate the nationhood of Pakistan. Second, Pakistan is unable to become a full-fledged democracy and a sustained, fast-growing economy owing to the disproportionate role assigned to alleged Indian hostility in the national affairs of the country. And third, on the international stage, Pakistan is one of the biggest countries in the world. It's one of the biggest countries in the world. And instead of being the front line in someone else's war, perhaps the time has come, and perhaps Pakistan deserves, to come into its own as the front line in pursuit of its own interests. And as for just turning our backs on each other, I've already said that Siamese twins have no option but to move together, even when they are attempting to pull away from each other. So what is the way forward from today's impasse? I do not think the impact on the Indian mind of 2611 is fully comprehended in Pakistan, even as I do not think Indians are sufficiently aware of the extent to which Pakistanis are concerned about terrorism generated from their soil, whoever the target might be, India, the West, or Pakistan itself. I suspect that the least positive movement in the direction of determinedly going after the perpetrators of 2611 will generate a disproportionately positive reaction in India, as we can see already happening with the arrival of the Judicial Commission in India. To take matters forward, the first task would be to consolidate the gains of the 15-year-old composite dialogue, including especially the gains on the back channel. And even as we proceed with consolidating the outcomes of the composite dialogue and the back channel talks, we should initiate talks about talks to structure the uninterrupted and uninterruptible dialogue. Let me place before you an outline what I envisage as the 7 essential elements to be structured into an uninterrupted and uninterruptible dialogue. These are: 1, the venue of the dialogue. The venue of the dialogue must be such that neither India nor Pakistan can forestall the dialogue from taking place. Following the example of the supervision of the armistice in Korea at the village of Panmunjom for more than half a century, such a venue for India and Pakistan might best be the Wagah-Tari border, where the table is laid across the border so that the Pakistan delegation does not have to leave Pakistan to attend the dialogue, and the Indians don't have to leave India to attend the dialogue. 2, as in the case of the talks at the Hotel Majestic in Paris, which brought the US-Vietnam war to an end, there must be a fixed periodicity at which the two sides shall necessarily meet. In the Hotel Majestic case, the two sides met every Thursday, whether they had anything to say to each other or not. Indeed, even through the worst of what were called the Christmas bombings, when more bombs were raised on Vietnam in 2 weeks than by all the combatants in the Second World War, the Thursday meetings were not disrupted. In a similar manner, we need to inure the India-Pakistan dialogue from disruption of any kind in this manner by fixing a specific day in the week or the fortnight or the month when we shall meet, irrespective of whether we expect progress or not. Third, the dialogue must not be fractionated, as is the case with the composite dialogue between different sets of interlocutors. Here, the defense secretaries meet for defense purposes, the tourism secretaries meet for tourism purposes, the home secretaries meet for visas and terrorism. It's a fractionated dialogue. As in the case of the Hotel Majestic, where the US side was led by Kissinger and the Vietnamese side by Lê Đức Thọ, and both of them won the Nobel Peace Prize, ministerial level statesmen should lead the two sides with, I have a good suggestion as to who they should lead the Indian side. But ministerial level statesmen should lead the two sides, with their advisors perhaps changing depending on the subject under discussion. But the two principal interlocutors remaining the same, so that cross-segmental agreements can be reached, enabling each side to gain on the swings what it might feel it is lost on the roundabouts. Thus, the holistic and integral nature of the dialogue will be preserved. Fourth, instead of there being an agenda agreed in advance, which only leads to endless bickering over procedure, each side should be free to bring any two subjects of its choice on the table by giving due notice at the previous meeting, and perhaps one mutually agreed subject could thereafter be discussed by both sides. Fifth, half an hour should be set aside for each side to bring its topical concerns to the attention of the other side. This will persuade the general public in both countries that the dialogue is not an exercise in appeasement. Each spokesman can go back and say, "Humne sare ko dikhaya," but that becomes something that takes place while they get on with the substance of the dialogue. Sixth, there should be no timeline for the conclusion of the dialogue. This will enable both sides to come to consider and therefore durable conclusions, without either of them feeling they have been rushed to a conclusion against their better judgment. And seventh and finally, as diplomacy requires confidentiality, there will, of course, have to be some opaqueness in talks. At the same time, we cannot afford to swing the other way and bring in total transparency. So what I would suggest is a translucent process, like you see in the blue lights, the tube lights. So what I would suggest is a translucent process, where spokespersons of the two sides regularly brief the media, but without getting into public spats with each other. Dignity and goodwill must be preserved to bridge the trust deficit. I commend this 7-point program to you for your consideration. I cannot guarantee that such a dialogue will lead to success, but I do guarantee that not talking will lead us nowhere. Let us give peace a chance. We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have a world to gain. Thank you.
Thank you. Very erudite and objective presentation of Pakistan-India relations. I'm sure that this has motivated a lot of thought, and there will be a lot of discussion from the floor. But before we open the floor for discussion, I'll ask the judge.
Thank you, Khan. What do you do with an Indian like Manisha? Really, I mean, keep him here. For years, I've earned my livelihood by writing on strategy and statecraft, and always done it through the realist framework. And then Shankar walks up to me, wallops me into thinking differently, and I have nothing but to thank him for that. I've known Shankar for several years. I was also honored at one stage briefly to be his editor when he wrote for the Friday Times. And he has always, and I've had the occasion of being on Indian television channels with him very often. And it's amazing how he weaves the dream with reality. And I think that is where his experience as a diplomat, his experience as a politician, and his experience as a journalist combined in a mixture which is fantastic, which forces one to think differently. And as you might have noticed, the end of his talk, that reality. So you have the wish assumptions and you have the is assumptions, and you bring the two together, and he's done it beautifully. Just one more thing before, I don't want to stand between you and Shankar. But as far as the idea of itihas is concerned, I come from Lahore, which as recorded history goes is 3,000 years old, and Milton mentions Lahore and Agra and other great Mughal cities in Book 11 of Paradise Lost. And I come to Islamabad. I was always under the impression, we created this artificial city, only to find that we actually have the Islamabad generation now. So Pakistan might have been carved out of India, but we now have Pakistanis. And it's a reality, as Shankar said. And I think this is a reality that needs to be understood by the Indians, as we have to understand that it is in our interest to have peace with India, keeping in mind the issues and disputes that need an equitable resolution. Thank you.
Now may I open the floor for questions, but with a request that please be brief, because we have very little time, we have around 20 minutes left of the session, and as brief as possible so that several of us can participate.
I want to be the first. I want to be the first to speak from the floor because I think I would be reflecting the general sentiment of the audience in congratulating Shankar Aiyar on the brilliance of his syntax, the compelling logic of his analysis, and above all, the loftiness of his figure. Shankar and I have been singing the same song in music halls throughout the world, so I don't have any questions with his analysis. But I was intrigued by his beginning with that military quote, military incident. I don't know whether Mahatma Gandhi was influenced by Field Marshal Auchinleck or whether it was the other way around, but both of them wanted the Indian Army to remain united, you will recall. Following from that, I would like to pick up on the 4 categories of the obstacle, the institution. I believe that at this moment in time, that is perhaps the most difficult obstacle that we have to overcome. And I think, of course, it is from the Pakistan side that the problem mainly arises, although there may be traces of it in India. The Pakistan military mindset is conditioned to look upon India as a hostile neighbor. I don't go with the theory that this is a justification for the perks and perquisites of the Pakistan Army. I think the Pakistan Army is now confident enough to know that it is a major actor on the national scene without having to invent an enemy. But the fact of the matter is that the Pakistan Army continues to speak both the languages of the military and the languages of diplomacy. This is not an easy mix. And you have to remember that until you can convince the Pakistan Army turned politician, Pakistan Army officer turned diplomat, that his fears are unfounded, we are going to be stuck in this. Mind you, the way I don't blame them, you see, it is all a conditioning. From the day, at the age of 18, they enter school, till the day they retire, it is drummed into them that this is the enemy, the enemy. This is a word which is not in the vocabulary of statesmen. But when the soldier tries to become the statesman, then he carries his vocabulary into the diplomatic field. So it is a genuine problem, and India has to put it bluntly, bend over backwards to convince the security establishment in Pakistan that it poses no threat. How you can do this, I don't know. Salman and I have suggested, why doesn't Prime Minister Manmohan Singh come here and offer a treaty of peace and friendship, the draft of which is already on the table? Why doesn't Prime Minister Manmohan Singh come here and offer regular exchange at the highest level of military officers so they can at least get to know each other? You know, at the time of the 1948 war, General Sher Khan, Pathan from our part of the world, was conducting the operation from this side. And one day he got a wireless message from General Katoch, who was his counterpart, saying, Sher, you were walking in your compound the other day, completely exposed, and my snipers had you in the prospect. Please be more careful. You know, this is the kind of thing that was there, but let them at least get to know each other. These are two suggestions which I might ask you to consider: the possibility of reviving the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and the possibility of military exchanges.
Thank you, Aziz. That's very generous. Sarwar Naqvi, former ambassador. Mr. Shankar, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you before, but I am greatly impressed by your presentation.